Buongiorno a tutti. Hello, everyone. Today we will run our Let's Peoplerise in English because we have an international guest. This was communicated, and you are also, for you, is also possible to catch back with the recording of this live session. For those who are turning for the first time to Let's Peoplerise, this is our way of opening the door of some conversation that very often stay behind closed door in like a small circle of practitioner or researcher, and we think this conversation deserve a wider community to share with. Peoplerise is a consulting firm. We're based in the north of Italy, and it's over 15 years that we accompany in evolutionary journey our client. We ground our work on self-management, leadership, and co-creation. And our work is at the intersection of human development in organizational transformation. And that's exactly one of the topic of today's conversation. So welcome, Elena. Welcome, Adam. Let me just say something about Adam Kahane, who is now who is with us today. So Adam is a special person, and many in Peoplerise have been following him in his work in the last 20 years. He is a global conflict mediator and facilitator. He's Canadian, born in Montreal, I guess. And he has worked in more than 40, 50 countries, helping groups with deep division in finding a way to work together. And he has made a big impact in South Africa for transition. When Nelson Mandela was coming back, he was facilitating dialogue among deeply opposed political actors, but also in Guatemala peace process, in the peace negotiation in Colombia, or in Copenhagen Climate Summit in 2009. So what he does is really work with people who normally don't sit together in the same room, and this, I think, is the nice and magical aspect of what Adam is doing. So welcome, very welcome, Adam, to today's session.
Well, thank you. I guess the theme today is how each of us can make our small contributions to whatever it is we're trying to make better. And I also have made some small contributions, which I'm happy about. Thank you for the invitation. And also thank you, Flavio, for the beautiful and very thoughtful and careful translation you've made of my new book.
Good. So Elena, I think
we want to start maybe from your experience in writing this book. So I would love to ask you, while you were writing and talking to a lot of people, maybe you can share with us also something about the process of that gave birth to this book, which is also very, very interesting. Maybe if there was one habit that for you was, more triggering, more creating reflection in comparison to your life, and maybe this can be also the starting point for the people connected to then feel free to add their comments, their question, and sharing their experience so that they can be part of the conversation. Just one thing, people that you are connected, feel free also to comment in Italian. Flavio and me will pick up your comments and translate them to Adam so that he can then answer. But I would start from this, the process of writing and what was most revealing or triggering for you.
Yeah. Thank you, Elena. Well, I love to write, and this is my 8th, I'm working now on my 8th book. And the book, Everyday Habits for Transforming Systems, is a little unusual because I started it because of a not knowing. And in that sense, compared to my other books, it's much less about my own experience and my own learning, although of course I include that, but much more about what I have learned from others. And I did for this book more than any other interviews and conversations with people I'd worked with around the world who I thought understood things better than I did. And the initial inspiration for the book was an extremely confusing conversation I had with a South African politician named Trevor Manuel, and I realized in that conversation that his understanding was completely different than mine, and that I didn't understand what it took day to day to contribute to transforming systems. So that's how I got started in the book, on the book. The habit that was most thought-provoking for me, I wouldn't say triggering, but I had the idea that the final chapter would be on taking responsibility for your own role in the system. I thought it was sort of an intriguing way to end the book. And my editor, but also my eldest granddaughter, Siobhan Wilkinson, who did all of the artwork, the cover and the interior illustrations for the book, both of them said to me, "No, Adam, you have to start there." And so this idea of starting with the habit, what's now a habit number 1, acting responsibly, I found very challenging, just because it's not something I'd thought about very much. And for those of us who are facilitators or consultants or observers or analysts, we're used to thinking of ourselves as being outside the system. It's not our responsibility. We're trying to help people do things better, but we're not really implicated. And this chapter, this habit, says if you can't see yourself within the system you're trying to change, then your contribution will be very minimal. So that for me, it's the shortest chapter. I said what I could, but I said that this is more of a riddle than a recipe. What is my responsibility? But I think it's a crucial riddle or question.
Yeah. This is also something that was striking me and also challenging me. And I think also this concept of radical engagement that is crossing the book in a way beyond the habit is something very important for people who are trying to play a role in system transformation. Yeah, maybe another way that sometimes you can refer to this is that if you don't have skin in the game, you cannot actually move the system. But since you are saying that you have been removing this from the last habit, actually, I have to say that what is still very difficult for me is the last one. So this strategic resting, this preserving yourself. So this habit is telling about is referring to transformation as a long distance runner rather than a sprint, where you have to alternate perseverance and rest, and finding joy in doing the journey. So to me, sometimes this is difficult. It's difficult to maintain this sense of joy throughout the journey when the work become relentless or too intense, leaving little room to breathe. I still consider this a very important habit, and I'm trying to find my way to do it.
Flavio, just to comment on the very last word you used, after I wrote the book, I came across the reflection that in a choir, that's to say, collective singing, one of the ways that the choir is able to have sustained long notes is that one person will take a moment to breathe while the others continue making the sound. And I found this a very helpful image.
Yeah, I just to bring some, daily news into what you were saying. Yesterday on the news, there were tons of articles on this famous singer stepping on stage in Milan by saying, "I'm sorry, I don't feel good. I'm really feeling bad. I tried, but I have to stop it here." And I think this shows how for our system is so big, still so big to just say, tonight I cannot, because to me was really striking the amount of news that the articles that were written about this while this person was just feeling sick. And even if she was under pressure because thousands of people came from all over Europe to see her concert, she just couldn't keep on going, no? To the point that then she felt posting a picture of her in the hospital just to say, I was really feeling bad. To me, it was very much linked to what you were saying.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, to organization, this idea of keep on pushing no matter how, I think it's a real topic. Also, in smaller context, and it's something to grow upon. I want to bring back 1 second to the first habit, because talking about skin in the game to me was very useful. This paragraph you wrote about what it does not mean to act responsibly. I often try to, when I try to understand myself what something means, I often go into what it does not mean, also within groups, because sometimes it's easier to agree on what something is not. And so you were saying it doesn't mean adapting. This requires, I think, a lot of strength, both as a consultant and as a part of an organization. It doesn't mean complaining, and it doesn't mean pushing, and it doesn't mean taking responsibility for everything, which to me is very much linked to the last habit, because if I take responsibility for everything, then I burn out very quickly. But it is about accepting responsibility for our particular relatedness to the system. So to me, this was very, very inspiring also in my daily conversation with client. And I don't know if you have a special experience to record on this.
Well, I'd want to make 2 comments just to back up a sec and then to talk about what you just asked. I think another reason why this patient perspective is important, patience doesn't mean laziness. Patience doesn't mean a lack of commitment or a lack of seriousness. But it is, I guess you could say, the theme, the leitmotif through the whole book is being realistic. And part of being realistic is understanding that many of the things we're trying to change grew up over decades and will be changed over decades. And if I put that in the negative, if I think, no, everything has to change right away, then I'm really left only with options of violence. And I think we see in the world these days a lot of, I guess I'd call it immature impatience and violence, and the idea that, okay, the only way to change things is to bomb them, to take an extreme example. So I think the seventh habit about persevering and resting is about taking care of ourselves, but it's also about having the realistic sense that gives us options other than violent options. And I'm writing these days and thinking a lot about this reflex of violence. Doesn't have to mean physical violence, but this idea that no, everything must change, and therefore I must just destroy it, and we'll see what happens. Coming back to the question you just asked, Elena, I would just say that I was confused for decades on, literally decades, on a very basic question. If everything's connected to everything, and if we're all part of larger systems, does that mean we must all work on everything? I know it sounds like a simple question, but I really didn't know the answer. And eventually I realized it's that no, what we're saying is, let's do what we're doing with a awareness of the larger picture. But that doesn't mean we all have to work on the world as a whole. And so, and that comes back to the title of the book, a very simple title, Everyday Habits for Transforming Systems. The book, in essence, is about the connection between what I can do, maybe in small steps. Every day in English has the connotation of doing it every day, but also doing ordinary things. In that sense, it has two meanings. So what are the ordinary, small, everyday things we can do that are connected to transforming larger systems, whether it's social systems or organizational systems or community systems or family systems? So for me, it was a huge relief. I'm amazed it took me decades to realize that we can be aware of and concerned about the state of the world as a whole, and yet what we can contribute is very particular. And maybe I can come back to this at the end, Flavio, because I think Leonard Cohen has some guidance for us on that matter.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're getting a different comment, so we can show some of this comment and maybe start from this. Let's see if some has question, because a good question. Yeah, there are some comments that are comparing the collective singing also with dance with complexity, and yeah, this one from Lena, and then there's a question that is coming regarding this last piece where you have taught about violence and impatience. So Samantha is making a comment regarding this, that maybe it's written directly in English, so maybe you can comment on that.
Yes, Samantha, thank you. I understand that the systems we have work for some people and don't work for others, and that this is obvious to some people and not obvious to others. So I'm aware of this, and I think that this question of injustice or justice is the key, and the book I'm working on now has that at the very center. So I'm not saying that violence is never justified, or I'm not going so far as to say that. I'm saying what I'm interested in and what I'm trying to understand and write about and develop a practice for is, how is it possible to affect system change without violence? So that's my focus. I understand the issue and the quandary, but I'm concerned about violence as a shortcut, which makes things worse rather than better.
And I also think, if I may contribute, that this is connected to the awareness of the larger system. And I'm saying this by experience. When you practice some of the habits that goes in this direction, like habits 3, that is about looking for what is unseen, or collaborating with those that are different from us. When these things are coming into the game, then I think also the use of violence is in a way taking a different shape, because we are putting ourselves in the shoes of the other, and we might find appropriate conversation and dialogues in some of the cases.
I have a question about this, because in your book there are a lot of social system examples that are far more complex than organization. As you know, we work a lot within organization. No? So there was one keyword that Flavio used, or you used, was the shortcut. No, so to me, what I was reflecting reading your books with organization in mind was that some of those, even if they can be everyday habits, sometimes they are really challenging some assumption organization are built around. And one of these is that one of the mantra in organization is we are short in time. No efficiency, deadlines, and so to what the Samantha's comment and question brought me up was the example mentioned in the Habits 3 of Santos spending 1,400 hours of listening just to gain the perspective of the people that were the most unseen. No, and I was thinking, what is the amount of time we can afford, or we invest these days, even in much simpler context like organization, to reduce these potential, if not violence, anger that can rise from people in the system that are really not seen. They feel they struggle to find their voice. No, so to me, this habit is so powerful and can really already transform our organization.
Well, the person you're referring to, there were two people in that chapter, both of whom spoke about listening to victims. That's in the context of the Colombian conflict. President Santos and a Jesuit priest named Francisco Duru, who became the president of the Commission for Truth, Convivencia, and Non-Repetition. I say the full name of the commission because I think the naming is so significant. And it was Duru who said that he took 1,400 hours. So I guess I will just say that all of these things are polarities. We're trying to be efficient and get things done, and we're trying to be realistic about the time things take. One of my great mentors was a businessman, the late Bill O'Brien, who was the president of an insurance company in the United States. And he used to say, it takes 9 months to make a baby, no matter how many people you put on the job. So things take time, and certain things take time. And if you try to do them quickly, you'll get it. It won't work, or it won't work as you're wishing it to. And so, yes, I think the example you give is very good, that we say, no, we must move quickly, and therefore we really can't afford the time to listen to different perspectives on the problem or the solution, especially from people who are lower down in the organization. We're going to just do what the executives think is necessary. I remember when I first started working in South Africa 30 years ago, somebody said to me, we're too busy, we don't have time for this because we're too busy dealing with the crises caused by not having taken the time before. I'm not quoting it exactly. So I understand questions about efficiency and time, but I'm also concerned that this doesn't really help, and is I guess you could say, a false economy. And yeah, but none of this is straightforward. All of this is about polarities and tensions, urgency, patience, inclusion, efficiency, radical change versus working with the system as it is. All of the above are important.
Yeah, we've been talking about polarities during the preparation of the translation together, Adam, and it became so interesting for us that in the end of June we will have our research event on this topic. So the title of the event is The Generative Force of Organizational Tension. And I think that also to make this, to bridge this in the company world, I think that understanding the fact that we do have polarities in complex system, and that company are complex system, and that we not always have to choose between two possibility, but we can also inhabit a polarity, and that this is keeping the generative force, the generative power of the organization. I think this is something that can come out from this book as a key learning for people who are transforming businesses and not large system.
Maybe Flavio, to this, there is the question from Alberto. If we can maybe share it, and if you want to comment on this, Adam.
Yeah, let me read it, because I got this request that the people are in the car and they want to hear the question. So the question is from Alberto is how can we reconcile a system built to respond with urgency and with some violence with long-term, slow transformation objectives? Humanitarian hate seeks to respond immediately, but also to work on long term, and we don't have a practice, an habit to do both. Yeah, I know Alberto, he is working in the humanitarian business, so I see his concern.
Yeah, so thank you, Alberto, and I guess all I would say is there are two imperatives, and they're both important. So that's the nature of a polarity. And the best example I know is the example of breathing in and breathing out. We have to do both. We can't choose just one. So we need to act with urgency, and we need to act with patience. In the book, I quote Rebecca Solnit, who I think writes very wisely about these matters and about perseverance in climate change. And I won't read the long quote, but I would just say that in humanitarian situations, in climate situations, we're dealing with the need for both urgency and perseverance. And that's why this last habit, habit 7, sorry, I'm looking at the book, so it's not, it's the only one where the title itself includes the polarity. Habit 7 in English is written persevering and resting. So they're both crucial.
We also skipped one previous question that is, I think, quite philosophical, but maybe you also can bring your perspective on this. This is the one from Bernardo. This is what the question is saying. Do you think this new form of knowledge based on uncertainty is more difficult to accept than the search for the absolute truths of the past?
Yeah, thank you, Bernardo. Well, I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer philosophical or history of philosophy questions, as my training very unfortunately was in physics. But I would just say from my own experience, and I don't often say this, but I'll say from my own experience and my advanced age, I would just say I used to be more certain that I am. I'm just very aware in myself and around me of how often the certainties and non-doubt and non-questioning produce terrible results. So this is why I think there's a habit. Sorry, I'm getting my books mixed up here. But yes, habit number 5, experimenting a way forward, that we think we know what to do. We have an idea. It's not as though we have it's not as though we're going without any direction. We have an idea. Somebody said we made an agreement in a meeting. Well, it's not really, or we drew a conclusion in a meeting. I think a more correct thing is we have coming out of the meeting, we have a new hypothesis. We think we know what would work, but we have to try it and see. And sometimes we try it and we see and we realize our idea works, but very often we try it and we see and we say, well, it was sort of correct, but sort of incorrect. Let's adjust. And the most evocative phrase I know on this is oddly enough from Deng Xiaoping, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, who referred to the economic transition in China. I don't know much about Chinese Communist Party history, but I assume that it was all we made a decision, we know the answer, we're now going to implement it with discipline and without doubt. But the phrase Deng Xiaoping is famous for having used is, we're crossing the river feeling for stones. So that doesn't mean we're on the side of the river, we know exactly what to do and everybody's just going to do it. No, it means the opposite. It means we know where we're trying to go. We're trying to get across the river, but we really are just going to have to take it step by step, because what we need to understand is not visible. It's underneath the water, and we're just going to have to feel our way. So I think this is a very sound idea. And I've been very influenced by the writings of Isaiah Berlin, whose central idea is that the notion that there's one true answer, one overall true answer, leads to terrible suffering. And he was always quoting, and then I'll end my philosophical history because I'm running out of examples, but Berlin was always quoting Immanuel Kant, who said, out of the crooked timber of humanity, no straight thing was ever made. So this is very much my orientation, but as I said, my readings in the history of philosophy have just been exhausted.
And Adam, thank you very much for this. And I have a burning question for that. But why most of the organizations still take a top-down approach to change then? What's not working?
Because I think it's easier. When I started I think it's the habit of I'm in charge, I know best, do it my way, and it suits the people at the top. It's more straightforward, it's more controlling, it's more powerful, it rewards them better psychologically and financially. I think it's an easier way to advance.
What is the image when this is happening? What's happening to the system?
Well, sometimes the people at the top are right. I had the privilege of working, when I did do corporate consulting a long time ago, I worked a long time with Federal Express at the time that, sorry, his name is escaping me, but the founder of Federal Express, Fred Smith, was the CEO, and he was very impressive. He directed Federal Express from the top down with brilliance over decades. So sometimes it can work in certain businesses. Maybe it's particularly well suited to the logistics business. But I think there's probably more cases of that not working than cases of it working. And
on this we have the comment from Ilaria, if we can screen it, and she brings a topic that is part of your 5 habits, that are that also our cultural context does not welcome the uncertainty. It doesn't see it as a value. And I remember in the example you mentioned on the 5 habits that there is this what you call a mental model issues. So there are some assumptions. In this case, it's about the Hope project of people being poor, not being able to do something, and this challenging of the assumption then lead through experimentation to some big discoveries. But I also think that the whole, let's say the way organization call it, the whole performance model is really based on how much you get close to objective, is not how much you are resilient to uncertainty. And so it's not really helping so far. Don't know if you have comment on this also, shifting of cultural and mental models in your experience of writing this book.
No, I'll just make a brief comment, which is that the story you're referring to, or the example you're referring to in Habit 5, Experimenting Way Forward, is the example of work in Thailand with Sumit Champrasit. And I won't go through the whole example, but what I find significant is that it's an agricultural example. And that my limited work with people involved in agriculture and farming and food is that that is a culture where it's well understood that first of all, not everything is under our control, obviously, and secondly, we were just going to have to see what works. I don't have the exact quote, but Sumit says in that story, we only know what works by trying. So I guess I would say there's more than one culture, and maybe the culture for a farmer in Thailand is different from the dominant culture of a logistics executive in Tennessee. I think there's multiple cultures we can work with here, and you would be aware of, from your own work in Peoplerise, which cultures work in which contexts.
Yeah, so we also get some requests if you could articulate a little bit on the habit of working with crack. And Bernardo quoted the Cohen line. So there is a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in. And just maybe to spark the conversation on this, I was reflecting yesterday about something that there is in the book, like that the crack is a threat for a static wall. But I was reflecting that in living system is a precondition for life. I mean, the water breaking in pregnancy, the hatching of the egg, the butterfly emerging from the chrysalis. So yesterday I was kind of reflecting on this, but maybe if you want to articulate something of your experience in working with cracks.
Yeah. Yeah, so thank you for those examples. And my wife is South African, and I remember her saying to me decades ago that only a man would think that transformation occurs without pain. So she was well aware. I guess she was thinking of childbirth at the point you make is obvious. And thank you. I think it's helpful. And so yes, thank you, Bernardo. I use the word cracks in the book. It's I'm just looking. It's habit number 4, working with cracks, and the metaphor of a crack, something that's breaking down or breaking through, has been very popular. I find this metaphor appeals to people more than any. And there's a lot of people have written about that metaphor. And Elena, thank you for what you've added. But it's a really helpful metaphor. But actually, I realized that the reason I had the idea of that metaphor is not included in the text of the book for a very strange reason. I'm from Montreal, and so I'm required in any speech or webinar to quote Leonard Cohen at least once, as he is from Montreal, and I have to say my mother went to school with Leonard Cohen, so we imagine him almost as a member of the family, although I never met him. But when you publish a book in the United States, it's absolutely forbidden to quote even one line from a song for purely for copyright reasons. So I, in the end, excluded it. But let me just take a chance here, given as I suppose the legal liability is with Peoplerise, not with me, for what I'm about to say. But when I went back to the Cohen quote, or the Cohen song that you're referring to, it's called Anthem, I realized that the refrain, of course, includes the phrase that you've quoted, but the sentence before that is maybe even more significant. The refrain is, "Ring the bells that still can ring, forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." So the second part of that is what was in my mind when I used the word crack, but I was so stunned at the first line, and I found an interview of Leonard Cohen where he said, the point is, and I think this is maybe, although it's not in the book, the most important point in the book, is that he says, every one of us has a bell we can ring. It may not be visible to us. We may need to search for it. But what it means is that within reach, within our grasp, somewhere around us, is something that we directly can do to contribute to the transformation of the system we're concerned about. But that the requirement for that is to forget our perfect offering, forget the idea that our idea has to be perfect, or the timing has to be perfect, or the plan has to be perfect, or our partners have to be perfect, or that we have to be perfect. That insisting on a perfect offering is an impediment to doing what we can. And so I found that song, even though it's not in the book itself, is the perfect summary of what I'm trying to say in the book.
The soundtrack of the book. I think your singing is the best way to wrap up this conversation. And as we are all witnessing, there are even more comments popping up. And so we just wanted, while thanking you so much, also to tell to the people that are connected that as Peoplerise, we decided to start a book club on this book, because we think there is a lot of value in sharing experiences around every habit. So our concept is like the musical, 7 meetings for 7 habits. And it will start in 1 month exactly, 27 of April. And it will be every 2 Mondays from 5 to 6. Our colleague from the communication then will release all the details for registration and how to be part of this. And yeah, I leave to Flavio and you for a final comment. And I know you have a great experience with also book clubs, or shared reading. So if you have a final word on this, would be great. And thank you so much to my colleague Flavio and to you for being with us.
Well, thank you both. And I'll just say that, yes, I have been doing a lot of these book clubs. And what I find useful is to talk, not just to read a book or to hear the author talk about a book, but to work with colleagues on putting the ideas into practice. That's where things get interesting and not straightforward and not as simple as they sound in a book. So what I found in these clubs of people using the book is that the horizontal exchange among practitioners is what they appreciate most. So I'm really thrilled that you're doing this. And if my Italian was better, I would, of course, join.
Yes, good. So let me close.
Grazie mille.
Thank you, everybody. There are more questions, Adam. If you just go to the link and you want to contribute to some of the reply, you'll find it there with the recording of this session. Regarding this perfect offer, actually, when I prepared the introduction to the book, I asked to Adam what he could suggest to the youngest transformator, system transformator. The name of this last paragraph is Dimentica la tua offerta perfetta, so it's really forget your perfect offer. And I think it's very important, as nowadays we see that the youngest generation feel they have no power, they have no possibility to impact the system. And I think this way of understanding how system change can give hope also to the youngest. Thank you very much, and see you soon with the next Let's Peoplerise.
Thank you. Bye.